Hey guys, it's Matt, continuing with the Philosophers Series and Carl Jung, but as you can see in the title, I changed it back to the Philosophers Series. Whether you like him or not, believe he's all Longshanks or notnilC, this person has literally changed the world with his ideas. Introduced language and diction that's part of our everyday speech. He does not deserve the term of fool-losopher. This is no fool. So like him or not, I'm not going to use, of course, the disrespectful term. I'll continue the Philosophers series with others like Nietzsche, but not with Carl Jung. Also a disclaimer, I'm from Philly, $50. A lot of times I'm going to probably slip and say Carl Jung. I understand it's Carl Jung. Okay. Just let me be, please. I'm going to say Carl Jung. I'm from Philly, $50. A lot of times I'm going to slip when I'm thinking about other things. He's just in Philly's Carl Jung. Matt, what is this? If I wanted to take a college class, I'd go enroll down at the local community college and pay them a few $100, sit there with the other adult learning jerks. I'm out of here. I'm not listening. But wait, don't go anywhere. First off, yes, it could be a whole college class. There are many universities that have done entire semesters, if you're some sort of psychology major, on Carl Jung. Maybe entire classes, no doubt about it. I will make it more interesting than the eggheads that put forth those classes. Just give me the opportunity, please. Now, in addition to having a lot of his own great ideas and concepts, like the term introvert and extrovert, that came from Jung. What percentage are you extrovert, introvert, the blend of different personality types? He actually had a lot of good ideas on his own, but he's just as famous for being linked with Sigmund Freud. For about a decade, they were great friends. 20 years his senior, Sigmund Freud was. Carl Jung, born in Switzerland. They were great friends until they had a falling out. One founded analytical psychology, the school of analytical psychology. That's Jung. And the other is the insane psychoanalysis, where everybody wants to marry their mother. Yeah, that's kind of why they had the falling out. And I would take Jung's side on this, and I bet you would too. Jung basically said, let me sum up like reading of 10 books for you in just a few sentences. Jung was like, with this guy here, Sigmund Freud, who he once considered his hero, 20 years his senior. And then he started to lose respect for him because he's like, with this guy, everything's about the dick. Everything's about sex. Everything's about mating with your mother, and everything's about a pent-up sexual energy and sex this. And Jung's like, this guy's freaking, he's weird, or something wrong with this guy. Everything isn't a pent-up sexual frustration, Sigmund. What the hell's wrong with you? So that's basically what happened if you don't like reading like 5 or 10 really boring books about the topic. And also he said that Sigmund Freud was very guarding of his psychoanalytical ideas on psychoanalysis. So when Jung challenged certain things in public, oh, Freud didn't like that. You challenging my authority. Everybody does want to mate with their mother. And Freud didn't like how Jung was actually, in a way, starting to badmouth psychoanalysis. So Jung said, basically, he was in that camp of psychoanalysis. He thought he would just be a Sigmund Freud disciple, and he was happy to do that until he said, "This is all horseshit." Maybe he said, "This is all Longshanks. I'm going to do my own, which is analytical psychology." So if you remember nothing else from this segment, you've heard all your life that Sigmund the Sea Monster Freud, psychoanalysis, there's like a sexual answer or root to the cause of many psychological problems. And we've heard that over the years. And you and I, we think that's kind of weird. And the good news for us is Jung thought it was weird too. What I've read about Jung confirms that he's like Sigmund the Sea Monster. Everything doesn't have a sexual cause. You just weird. I think you have sexual issues, buddy, because you have to work that into your psychoanalysis in every one of your boring books that you write. So the good news is Jung would agree with us. So Jung was born a poor white child in 1875 in Switzerland. Sigmund Freud, roughly 20 years older, born in what was called at the time of his birth, the Austrian Empire. Is that like the Turkish Empire? I don't know what that is. Austria-Hungary? I can't keep it straight. It's like the way Czechoslovakia calls itself Czechia. So, of course, spending his time in what we call Vienna, they call it like Wien or something. I don't understand that either. Is it Vienna or is it Wien? Whatever. The two men met up when Jung was in his early 30s, I believe, became great friends for a decade, then had a falling out. In terms of the influences that came before Jung, in the order here in which they were born, what Jung grew up reading and was most interested in the written works of, three main influences going back to the 1600s. First is Emanuel Swedenborg. Made a video on him about 4 or 5 years ago. Swedenborg is a very interesting individual with incredibly documented cases of clairvoyance and second sight. He said he was visited by angels and spirits, some very out there, interesting ideas. So that's a positive influence on Jung, if you ask me. The second one here goes to born in the 1700s, Immanuel Kant. Again, very great mind, great thinking. He will be in the Philosopher Series, not the Philosopher Series. He's smarter than your average fifth grader. Immanuel Kant, some amazing written works. Oh no, the last one, Friedrich Nietzsche's here. Nietzsche influenced Jung? Oh no, is that where he went wrong? Did he read that horse shit like thus spoke Zarathustra? The only thing good about that is the word Zara in there. And I hope he didn't read that horse shit from Nietzsche about eternal return. That's so depressing, it's enough to make anybody want to jump off the bridge. It says here regarding Immanuel Kant, what was very interesting to Jung was Kant's writings about two orientations of the soul. Two orientations of the soul. One towards everyday concerns, and the other towards the spirit world. What the... That ain't nothing more than Matt's Vitruvian Man. Did Kant steal this from me? When was he born? Matt, he was born in the mid-1700s. You stole it from him. Actually, I can prove I didn't steal it from him. My idea of the Vitruvian Man, one side being pulled by Hillary Clinton saying, you only human, you just of this world. You want our rewards. And then the other arm, most people don't even see they have the other arm, the spiritual side of the Vitruvian Man. I can prove I didn't steal it from Kant. You know why? I don't read any of this stuff. I read mostly comic books in my 20s and 30s. It says here, if Kant was right, then perhaps paranormal phenomena, which distorted time and space, could teach us about the soul. It was therefore essential to investigate parapsychology and such phenomena as hypnosis, spiritualism, clairvoyance, and telepathy. Jung has tons of stories regarding a spirit that visited him or something flying off the wall. All this paranormal stuff is associated with Jung in his personal accounts or diaries. Now, to save you 50 pages of reading, Jung had a little imaginary friend. Let's just get right to the point. This doesn't dissuade me from discounting Jung's ideas. It was called Philemon. See, to many people, it says anybody that would have a conversation with something that's not there, this guy's got to be whacked out of his mind. He called it Philemon. He called an archetypal image of the spirit. And he literally, my understanding is described it literally like walking through the garden, and there was literally something there. Now, Jung admitted it was an aspect of himself, not just some spirit or angel or demon that popped out, some sort of aspect of himself, an archetypal image of the spirit. But he would carry on, at his own admission, conversations with this Philemon as if it was completely real. One point here, Jung says to Philemon, which is himself, so many of my thoughts are not my own? And Philemon says, of course, many of your thoughts are not your own. You treat thoughts as if you generated them yourself. But thoughts are like animals in a forest or people in a room. Do you think you've made them too? Maybe we did, Philemon. This is Matt talking to Philemon. Don't stop yourself short, Philemon. Maybe we do make the NPCs at the airport. Depends how many generative beings are here in this reality system. Remember the first rule of the Kabbalion? All is mind. All is generated from mind and consciousness. So maybe we do make the plants and the animals. How many generative beings are here? 144,000 animals. 144,000. Maybe we do. Don't stop short. Don't sell yourself short, Philemon. Anyway, if you ever hear the word Philemon, if I'm pronouncing that right, linked to Carl Jung, now you know a little bit of what it's referring to. I'm going to be Philemon, I think, for next Halloween. You can dress up as anything. Nobody knows what it looks like. What are you, Philemon? How would they know if you're right or wrong? That's a great idea. Every morning, Jung began to sketch circular drawings which seemed to reflect his inner state day by day. These circular drawings are similar to what are called mandalas used in Eastern meditation exercises. He was started to do this all the time, make these drawings similar to what's called mandalas, not Mandela for the trigger, mandalas. He saw that the mandala returned everything to a single central point and interpreted this to mean that the goal of psychic development was the path to the center, to individualization. What the heck? That's like the individual reality bubble at the center of our concentric rings diagram. Does Jung have notnilC, asshole dark, and things like the screen on the outer rings of his mandalas? Are any shown in this book? I didn't steal it from him. I took Psychology 101 my first semester at Penn State. That's the only psych class I ever took. I'll tell you the story sometime as how I slept through it was the second or third test. I slept through, I got there with 20 minutes left and I had to rush the test. It was like that dream sequence in Risky Business or something like that. It says here, the circular structure of the mandala symbolizes the self, the totality of the individual consciousness and unconsciousness as one, which carries an individual's sense of meaning and purpose as he or she moves towards it. Yeah, that's in our concentric rings diagram, the notnilC reaching in, its greasy hands, tentacles, and fingers trying to get in to your personal reality bubble. Hey, Jung, do you realize you got to let it in? You got to do Paul McCartney, Billy Shears, something knocking at the door, something ringing a bell. Do me a favor, Carl Jung. Don't open the door and let notnilC in. Maybe it was the works of Carl Jung that inspired that villain, Paul McCartney, to write something like that. One of the main premises of Jung's analytical psychology was the interpretation of symbolism. So a patient may say, I saw this or that, not always in a dream like Freud's psychoanalysis, just seeing something in the clouds or seeing something in the waking world, and the patient says, I have no idea what they mean. And Jung would say, of course you don't. I mean, and the dictionary definitions of these symbols are meaningless, empty. It's your emotional response that matters. You're not going to know what it means. The meaning of the symbol that you're so fixated on in the conscious world, he says here, is hidden from your conscious control. Symbols are clues activated by your own unconscious energy. It seems that one of the reasons that Carl Jung was so interested in the writings and works of Emanuel Swedenborg, who again was born all the way back in the 1600s, was about his waking dreams and visions. At first, he was very interested in the works of his mentor and hero, Sigmund the Sea Monster Freud, because they were both very interested in the symbolism of dreams. Jung continued to be interested in breaking down the symbolism of dreams. But it almost seems like, without me reading the collective works and spending like 10 years doing some waste of time doctoral thesis in the Ivy League, it almost seems like Jung would say, well, this Sigmund the Sea Monster was too concerned with dreams. In other words, it's not just about dreams. There can be visions in the waking world. And why are you drawn to this type of symbol or even this sort of thing in nature? And Emanuel Swedenborg had waking visions and dreams, which was extremely interesting to Jung, and Jung believed it was all real, of course. And the famous story with Swedenborg was 1759. Swedenborg was staying with friends in Gothenburg, 300 miles from Stockholm. At 6 p.m., he went out alone, but returned, it says here, pale and alarmed. Swedenborg proclaimed, a fire has just broken out in Stockholm, Sweden, and it's spreading fast. A house of a friend is in ashes, and my own house is threatened. At 8 p.m., he exclaimed, thank God the fire is extinguished just 3 doors from my house. Now, this is a famous story that's associated with Emanuel Swedenborg that gets a lot of people's attention in addition to Jung's. Then, of course, couriers arrived a day or two later, basically giving Swedenborg the details of exactly what happened at exactly the time when he said it happened. So Sigmund the Sea Monster would probably say this is all horse shit, and people like Jung believe this. No, this is very real. And Jung had similar type paranormal experiences himself. He even had several encounters with what would be called a ghost or a poltergeist or an evil spirit or something like that would haunt him or throw, again, a plate off the wall, something like that. As I mentioned earlier, Jung introduced many concepts and words and terms that are just common in everyday use, like extrovert and introvert. An introvert attitude is motivated from within and directed by inner subjective factors. An extrovert attitude is motivated from the outside and is directed by external, objective factors and relationships. If I would have taken that second psychology class at Penn State, I would have learned one of the things he's most noted for, Jung, is the four functions of the psyche, grouped into two pairs. Four aspects of the psyche, and you put that little dot where somebody kind of shifts this way or favors this side. And I think this is very interesting because people like us, people like you and me, we are much more on this side where we would put the dot. Let me just explain the four corners here. Thinking, intuition, feeling, and sensation. Okay, thinking, intuition, feeling, and sensation. Thinking, the left side of the brain, thinking in terms of the ego and the rational mind, and you can work it out with your brain. And there's no reason to listen to your heart or listen to your inner knowing. Logic, Spock's logic. This is all notnilC. This is what the notnilC world wants us in, the constant frontal lobes, thinking, using English to reason things out. That's one of the main tricks of this reality. You can work it out with the rational mind, or ask Siri. You don't need the spiritual side of the Vitruvian man. Sensation, feeling. The Richard Feynman famous quote: "If it disagrees with experiment, it's wrong." As you know what I would say. If it agrees with your experiment, it's a lie coming from the trick of reality. So sensation, it has to be measured. Where we in our community are much more the other two sides. Intuition, the inner knowing, inner tuning fork. What does your heart tell you, Jerry Maguire? Use the rational mind and the thinking brain later. Go on intuition and gut instinct and gut feeling first. And the intuition and feeling. That's where we are. What does notnilC drive the masses toward? The thinking and the sensation aspect of the psyche takes over, which probably makes them more subjective to the download. So just to summarize this section, there's four corners on the diagram. Thinking and sensation, to me that's more of your friends and family, the people of this world, the masses, the NPCs. Thinking and sensation. Sensation more like scientific experiment. The other side, intuition and feeling. Those that guide and run their life on intuition and feeling. That's where we are. It's pretty clear where you need to be to avoid the download in the ship of fools. If you are completely on the intuition and feeling side, and you are in touch, that means you're in touch with the spiritual side of the Vitruvian man, then I don't think it's possible that the ship of fools download would work on somebody that is on this side of the chart. notnilC wants to gather billions and billions and push them up towards thinking and sensation, because that's all Longshanks, that's all notnilC, that's all download and radio station. Real quick, guys, 1 minute. If anybody's confused because I throw around this Longshanks thing, let me just explain it. Most of you know it's from Braveheart, the movie. But the scene where the noblemen are squabbling over who has the right paperwork, the succession to the Scottish throne, and they want William Wallace to, honor our paperwork here. It's legitimate. It says our family lineage has the line to the Scottish throne. During the time of Braveheart, nobody sits on the Scottish throne. And one guy steps forward, "You're prepared to honor our claims." And the rest of the noblemen yell, "They're all Longshanks, men. They're all, they're just puppets of Longshanks." So when I say they're all Longshanks, I'm just saying that means it's of the notnilC. It's a puppet of the system. It's just another representation of the screen. It's just another word for the asshole dark. I've been throwing around Longshanks. So just to finish up this section, Jung then further classifies personality types using the four terms we just looked at, but also adding introvert and extrovert. Now, this gets confusing. I'm sure it was a real boon to psychology professors that probably based an entire examination off this horse shit. But you see, an introvert thinking type, this person favors the thinking in the four boxes and adding introvert. Where most people in this community, I can assure you, as I've just said, are on the feeling and intuition side and more on the introvert side versus the extrovert. So we would be more introvert intuition, introvert feeling. Okay, I sound very extroverted when I give these presentations. Jung in his stuff here talks about the total persona, that then different personas can come forth. A different persona of mine comes forth before the microphone. Something I can pull forth when I used to give presentations to 100 people in the old insurance company in the 90s, or talk in front of large crowds. I've always can be kind of funny from time to time, but people that have met me in person, they can be quite disappointed. Where's the Matt that seems like he could be the life of the party? I basically just want to pet my cat, be quiet for hours on end, and basically be left alone. I mean, it's completely different personality. I have met with several people. This personality can come back, but this is not the personality that exists once these videos. I mean, it's something it's not faked in any way. You would know in 2 seconds if it was faked. This is it's just something that, in order to communicate a message or to make it entertaining, there's a side of me that can come forth, but this side does not exist very much unless I'm in front of a microphone making a video. It's legitimate, of course, or I'd have 5 subscribers. You, especially people like you could see right through it if this is faked. It's real, but it's not. Some people have met me and said, "This is a damn disappointment, Matt. You're boring as hell." Yeah, well, sitting around the couch here with Fifi out of my lap, I basically just want to be left alone. I'm not an extrovert in any way. Complete introvert. Here's the details on the introvert paired with the intuition. Examples of those in this category: mystics, poets. This where most of us would be. Introvert / favoring the intuition as well as the feeling. There's no doubt what notnilC would like most is extrovert thinking. Extrovert, the energy goes out, constantly trying to push outward, and the thinking, the frontal lobes, the rational mind. Siri will logically tell you what's best. You don't need to use your gut feeling. That's what the notnilC tries to mold, in my opinion. Edna molds. Sorry, I saw The Incredibles recently. Was it Disney's last good animation? And Pixar's? It really is it's a clever, fun little movie. It really is well done. The Incredibles. He goes to get a new suit or something. One of the great characters, little Edna Molds. She has the eye scanner, the retina scanner, the fingerprint, and then she has to lean into the mic voice scan to get into her secret chambers where she makes the superhero suit. It's just Edna Molds. I think I like it. I think the whole incredible. I think it's the last great one that came from Disney. Frozen got all this attention. I think that was a few years after, and I watched it and went, "This is just, there's nothing here." I didn't understand all the hoopla around Frozen. I turned it off. Sorry. Let's get back to Matt. This is about Carl Jung. What's this horse shit? Sorry. Matt, how would you classify, if you're looking at the chart? I mean, somebody like Melvin P. of the Belinda and Melvin P. Gates Foundation, would he be like extrovert sensation on that side of the chart? I'm not sure one of the top minions would fit in. This is for what they call the human. I'm not sure those aliens fit in anywhere here, honestly. I'm not sure. Though you'd have to fly back to Jared Kushner's home planet to see where they fit in. They are completely alien to me, those creeps. We've all heard of this. One of the things Jung is very famous for, the ego and the shadow. Oh, is this where the shadow work horseshit comes from? Probably. The ego and the shadow. The light and the shadow were Jung's. He did classify his own personalities as the number 1 and the number 2. That's a famous thing. But ego representing the number 1, I believe, and shadow, the number 2. The ego is the fragile, precious light of consciousness that must be guarded and cultivated. I'm sorry, Carl. I would disagree. The ego is the greedy little addicted son of a bitch that wants to get all the notnilC rewards. I disagree, Carl. Sorry. What else does it say here? One of the first steps in analysis to make the patient aware of the ego-shadow relationship. The shadow is always the same sex as the patient, as the person. That relates to something coming a little bit later. The ego is your sense of purpose and identity, as the notnilC has handed it to you. You're missing that part, Carl. The notnilC has told you, working in your cubicle, doing your TPS reports, what is best in life, Conan. Conan, working in your TPS report cubicle, what is best in life? To make my money, to get my bonus, to take my vacation, and then to get rewarded via moving up in the company. A healthy ego organizes and balances the conscious and unconscious elements of the psyche. Okay. Yeah, a weakened ego leaves an individual in the dark Oh, I don't know about this, Carl. A really strong ego leaves somebody opening up their mouth asking for notnilC fish treats. I don't know about this. We're straying. Matt, you're not of equal standing of Carl Jung in terms of an intelligence standpoint. I don't think so. I'm just, if I disagree with him, I'm going to lie. So I bow down to everything Carl Jung ever said. He's smarter than me, so I have to bow down to it. I'm not going to bow down to it. I assure you, we know more about the adversary than he does, and this is assuming he's working for us. Somebody this famous is most likely always working in a way for notnilC, not intentionally or trying, but the notnilC would like, say, certain things he's doing, bring him to prominence, like Spike Lee. If Spike Lee made movies that didn't make racism, foster and increase racism, do you think he would be pushed to the forefront? Of course not. Those pushed to the top are doing things that the notnilC likes. That's why my current analytics show a negative 20 subscribers as of the last 28 days. I'll show it to you if I can. That means I won't even get an email to show you where I got 10 or 15 people. They don't even bother to send the email when it goes down. So I don't think Carl Jung is in on it. When we read this, if the person is famous, we have to be aware what part of what he's doing does the notnilC like? And why was he pushed to prominence? No, you don't get to prominence and world famous as a psychiatrist, psychologist, unless you're doing a lot of things that the notnilC wants. This is obvious. Okay, so to finish this segment, the first element is the ego. The second element, remember, is the shadow. And what is the shadow? It says, it is our own dark side, characterized by inferior, uncivilized, or animal qualities, which the ego wishes to hide from others. What the? So the shadow's the fart sniffer. The shadow's it's the shadow that whacks itself off. He's making it seem like the ego is this holy thing that Carl, you're missing some things here, buddy. He's rolling around. Not wholly bad the shadow is, but that's Yoda talk. But primitive and unadapted. The fart sniffer, it doesn't say that. It can vitalize life if we honestly face up to it. Just admit you farted in the elevator. What else is here? Ego and shadow are personified by the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde story, the classic good and bad. So the ego, he's saying, is good. He's Carl, you have a lot of work to do. I'm not going to say you should be ashamed of yourself. You're only working with what you had. Reality has revealed itself to us. We're not smarter than you, Carl. You're 100 times smarter. Reality has revealed itself to us. You didn't know what you were working with back then. It's broken down. We have all these puzzle pieces in front of us that you don't have. We're not smarter. It's just reality just giving itself away. Any fool should be able to see through reality now. He did a good job with the tools that he had. It says here, the ego then identifies with the self. It can become inflated, dangerously godlike. An inflated ego projects its own irrational shadow on others and identifies them as evil. This here in this example goes on to explain how the mass psychosis whipped up in Europe in the 30s before World War II, centered at a certain group, was people were pushing their own evil shadow onto another group, at least the example. I don't know if Jung said this, at least the example given in the book. Well, there's a lot of problems with this, Jung. If you're rolling around, there's a lot more to a real spiritual being than just the ego and the shadow. I mean, let's go back to your four-cornered chart or whatever. I mean, you know, there's some both of these are the notnilC wants to have under its influence. They do exist in us. They exist in everyone listening. But if we were only ego and shadow, I think we all would be under the download on the ship of fools on the river of insanity. There has to be other parts associated with that other spiritual side of the Vitruvian man that can push back on ego and shadow. Ego, has a role in this place. Ego is needed in this place, but don't make it seem like that's the good. That's the son of a bitch that wants the notnilC fish treats. What the hell are you talking about, Carl? You rolling around? Here's something else that a lot of college psychology professors have put on examinations: the persona and the soul image. The ego is related to what Jung calls the persona, that part of the consciousness which negotiates with the outer world on the ego's behalf. Persona comes from the Latin word for theater mask. It's the face, the persona is the face we wear for society. What I was saying earlier, what you're hearing from Matt right now, this is the face that I wear for videos. Trust me, if it was regular old Matt if I just was making a video on the side with Fifi Addy on my lap, you would have checked out a long time ago. This is the face that I wear for YouTube videos. It's legitimate and genuine, but it's generally kept way down when I'm not in front of a microphone. The way Jung presents this to me is very accurate. The persona is conditioned by social class, job, culture, and nationality. There are often several personas we use to suit different situations. Yeah, exactly. My regular personality isn't as bad as like that comedian Stephen Wright who talked at the beginning of the movie Reservoir Dogs, and he sounds like he's all depressed all the time. He's like, that was Emerson Lighthouse's love grows where my rosemary goes. I'm not going to sound like that. Like, I want to talk to you guys about the concentric rings diagram. It wouldn't be that bad, but it wouldn't be as entertaining either. Most people would have said, there's some interesting thoughts there. Are you going to listen to Matt again? No. You would have checked out a long time ago. Rob, who does, the freevoice.io for us, he listens to a lot of my videos. He's got a large family, doesn't listen to all of them, but we talk once every 2 or 3 weeks on the phone, or sometimes a little bit less. But he's probably like, who's this fucker? Who's this? The person talking to Rob is not the person that he hears in the YouTube videos, and that's okay. One isn't any less genuine than the other. Is your persona that you wear on a first date or at work, is it the same? That's why so many relationships break up. Person lives with a person for 3 or 4 weeks and they say, who's this fucker on the couch? That ain't the son of bitch that presented itself to me on the damn date. I've had people come to me and say, this person wants to meet you, Matt, based on what? Hearing my YouTube videos? Again, within 2 or 3 dates, they'd be like, well, who's this person sitting on the couch? And be like, I just want to be left alone with Fifi Addy Girl. Go away. I just want to sit here and watch a movie and pet Fifi Addy Girl. Don't you want to talk? No. Look at this. It says collective shadow. There's a collective shadow. What? Over all of us? The psyche is not confined to individuals only, but has a collective nature too. There's a lot of truth to this. Structured in the same way as the individual, the collective psyche forms the zeitgeist, or spirit of the age. That reminds me, remember the old Zeitgeist movie? Became famous in truth research circles. Matt, was that all notnilC and Longshanks too? Yes, of course it was. Nothing becomes famous like that unless in some way it serves notnilC. I don't care what part of it you would consider true or not. It was all meant to be, and it's a ninth inning hijack Zeitgeist movie, or what was that other thing we looked at in the last few months? Everything is a rich man's trick. A lot of truth it's sprinkled throughout, but that's what the notnilC does. Okay, it's a collective shadow. One example of the collective psyche shadow is it talks about what happened in, say, Germany coming up in the 30s, and the shadow was pushed onto another group. We covered that. That's at least the example that they keep being given here. And whatever, there's truth in here. Whatever you believe or not believe, again, this isn't my first rodeo in terms of all the possibilities of doing this for almost 15 years. Then notnilC did try to push a collective psyche shadow on to them as blame of no matter what you believe was true or not. That's what the notnilC wanted its main takeaway to be. The notnilC understands psychological tactics. Maybe that's why it's so in love with Carl Jung. It's stolen a lot from these. Maybe Carl Jung had a lot of his stuff stolen and used by notnilC in influencing the masses, where like in Edward Bernays, which is, he been related to Freud, maybe they are more of the notnilC bloodline and knowingly contributed to notnilC aims for the collective, where Carl Jung maybe didn't know how he helped notnilC. Anyway, we could speculate on this forever. Let's move on to some of the main concepts that are still need to be presented here and wrap it up. Oh, this is interesting. The danger is in identifying totally with the persona, being nothing but the role you play at work or wherever certain personas arise. And the notnilC, that's what it does. It has a certain persona or a way people identify, and then it tries to get people to understand that there's nothing more to them than the persona that the notnilC mostly wants to deal with. And then that puts you smack in the middle of the ship of fools on the river of insanity. So in terms of, say, what's going on today, can you think of a class, spitballers in the back, put those spitballs down. Class, can you think of a certain group where the notnilC tries to sway these millions and millions over here to identify a certain way, or to believe that's the most important thing in their own persona? Where they stick it, where they or what they identify. Oh my gosh, could you imagine if Carl Jung was alive today? And he's like, they've taken my ideas, put them on steroids times 1,000,000. Oh my God, Carl would say, I can't believe this is actually happening. What does this group call themselves over here? They, them. What the hell is that? It says here kind of like people that attach so strongly to a certain persona, say one that's pushed by society and rewarded by society, isn't that, or will get you the job? Isn't that interesting? The people then become afraid of ever dropping that persona or mask because deep down they're afraid that there's nothing real behind it, that weird notnilC personality is just taken over and their real selves have been flushed down the Pope's abyss. Very interesting. 1 minute on this last part here because it is so famous in these psychological circles, but it's getting into a bunch of horse shit if you ask me. I don't think real spiritual beings don't need this horse shit, but you might have heard of this before. Male and female soul images. The unconscious side of the persona is the soul image. Put your hands out. Soul image. The unconscious side of the persona. And then to Jung, it's the opposite sex. So a man's soul image is the anima. It's female. The woman's soul image is male. It's animus. The soul image is an archetype which can represent the whole of the unconscious. It is inherited, collective, and ageless, but it is modified by one's actual experience of the opposite sex, especially parents. Soul images appear in dreams, myths, fantasies. They come to you through the unconscious mind, he's saying here, giving a distorted impression of individuals of the opposite sex. It's starting to break down here, Carl. Matt, what do you think of this part? Basically, like Steve Shanahan in Shallow Hal said to Hal, it's this, he has mostly dog shit, you know. It doesn't, I'm sorry. We don't, you know what? To do part 2, the work, and what my spiritual whole needs, do I need to understand animus and anima? No, like, remember Steve Shannon? This here is mostly dog shit, you know. We don't need this bullshit. We really don't. Carl has some good thoughts on certain things, but this is psychological horse shit. This is an interesting story. In 1944, approaching 70 years old, he had a heart attack, was in a drug state. Jung was close to death. He fell into an unconscious delirium and had an out-of-body experience. A figure appeared before him in this state near death and said, the figure in the dreamlike state, "You're not going to die." As soon as the doctor told him he must return, the vision ceased, and he started to, become coherent or wake up in the bed. It says here, Jung was disappointed and resented coming back to life. That's the story almost everybody that has the NDE, per what these channels present. I'm not making a judgment about that. I'm just saying that is a common theme that's very interesting. He was also worried that the doctor had appeared in his primal form to him in the, the image of the out-of-body experience or dream, because it meant, in the doctor appearing in that form, meant a fatal exchange had been made. I don't know how one determines this, but this is what it says here. And then Carl says, this means that my doctor will have to die in my place. His life's in danger, but the doctor won't listen to me, as Carl tried to tell him now that he's back and returned to the waking world and was slightly recovering. Why do you keep calling the doctor this name I can't pronounce? It's so unfriendly. That was the name that was presented, I guess, in the hallucination, in the out-of-body experience. But it says, on this day, 4/4/44, April 4th, 1944, his doctor took to bed and did not leave it again. He died soon afterwards of something here. So Jung wakes up, says, you're going to die in my place. The doctor goes home and dies. Well, it's pretty amazing if you believe it. Now, on this day, April 4th, 1944, I don't know what the fours have to do with it. Only thing that can come to me is Moses Malone's prediction when he was played for the Sixers was 4-4-4. Was going to sweep the Celtics, the Lakers, and I think the Atlanta Hawks or whatever it is. 4-4-4. They lost one, so it was 4-5-4. This is 4-4-44. Is Moses Malone the basketball player? He's Moses. Related to this? I don't think so. I'm just telling you the first thing that popped in my head, like a Rorschach test. Jung had several experiences were very similar to Emanuel Swedenborg's clairvoyance or second sight. He said in this one case, images of someone drowning kept flashing into my mind, somebody drowning. And on my arrival, he writes, I discovered that my young grandson's boat had capsized in the lake, and he nearly drowned. Now, there's a lot of these stories. You either believe them or you don't. I mean, I have no basis of whether I should believe them or not. For a long time, Jung was into the Chinese ancient teachings of the I Ching, or Book of Changes. In one instance, he says he sat for hours beneath a 100-year-old pear tree practicing I Ching techniques, and all sorts of strange, remarkable, paranormal things started to happen. So again, these stories with Jung are endless, not really, but this is one thing he didn't like about Sigmund the Sea Monster. Freud, he called it was called a materialism, a materialistic view of psychology. As soon as Jung ventured into this, Sigmund the Sea Monster, there's spiritual reasons behind. He would venture all the time into that side of the Vitruvian Man, and Freud, no, it's the materialist model. Freud was only on one side of the Vitruvian Man. That's why notnilC loved him so much. Oh, spiritual side? No, that's not a cause. That doesn't even exist. It seems as if Jung in no way was a Christian, wrote a lot about the psychology behind religion and its evolution from archaic images through ancient civilizations and the prophets, physicians, and priests through Christianity and what are considered to be theologians, almost like the image or the presentation of Christ is an evolution of evolution of religion going back a long time. Again, images and symbolism dominated Jung's thinking. So here's the symbolism of the Catholic Mass described here might be a better example of the way he thought about religion. When a Christian faith or a Catholic, say, speaks of salvation through Christ, he's saying it is referring to the individualization process, salvation, and an image of wholeness or self, the God image, Christ. I don't know exactly what this means, but just to give you an idea of where he's coming from. This individualization process is ritually dramatized by the Catholic Mass, in which the bread and wine symbolize Christ. Rituals in which a God is transformed into food and eaten existed long before Christianity. Jung mentions an Aztec rite. These spiritual experiences of death and rebirth communicate a process of becoming whole through sacrifice. You are changed in substance or transubstantiated, transformed, exalted, literally self-enhanced. The drama of the Catholic Mass arose from the same psychic process underlying other ancient pagan rituals. Matt, what's being said here? I don't know. Bring in Steve Shanahan. Most of this is dog shit, you know. Whatever. He's not. He's not. This isn't clear. I don't know. He talks a lot about God, and he's very spiritual. Jung is spiritual, but not. I don't think you can apply any one religion to him. I appreciate much more tried to bring the spiritual nature of things to the forefront, to the conversation, versus somebody like Sigmund the Sea Monster, Freud. It says here regarding the Faust legend, the deal with the Mephistopheles Satan character written by, it looks like it's, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's like Goethe. Goethe is what it looks like. It's if you're from Philly. Please don't put in the comments how to pronounce it. Please don't waste comments on that stuff. Like Block Island is in. It doesn't matter. Please use the comments to try to move our understanding of reality and what we need to do for our spiritual whole forward. It doesn't matter where Block Island is. It doesn't matter how to pronounce Goth or Goth or whatever it says here, Rosie O'Donnell. So the Faust legend, obviously deal with the Mephistopheles Satan character in return for certain powers. It says, Jung says via this Faust legend, he formulates a problem that has been brewing for centuries: how to free ourselves from the opposites of good and evil, spirit and matter, faith and knowledge, etc. Oh, come on. Is this the 2-into-1 bullshit religion, or the overcoming of duality? What is this horse shit? How to free ourselves from the opposites of... In this place, we are not supposed to free ourselves from opposites. We are to experience this place. This is Matt talking. Why do these jokers keep talking about overcoming duality concepts? No, while we're here in this place, like Jack Nicholson said when he tried to negotiate the chips for the arms deal or whatever in that movie with Leonardo DiCaprio about Boston, he says, in this country, when we're here in this body, you can't get rid of one side. The coin will always have two sides, the good and the evil. You're not trying to overcome duality in this place. It just doesn't make any sense why this keeps coming up. They're to be experienced. They're to see how both sides draw you. It's the Animal House. When the little devil and little angel is on the shoulder, this is what this place is all about, managing the two sides and experiencing it. I mean, what is wrong with these people? One side can't overcome the opposites. Why do they keep alluding to that? Maybe that's why notnilC was so in love with Jung. He's all Longshanks. Let's just get through this horse shit. Bring in Steve Shannon. This is all dog shit, you know. His soul image, or anima, with whom he mistakenly identifies, and I, Metastopheles, I'm reading. Matt is not Metastopheles, I'm reading. I, Metastopheles, am Faust's own shadow. Oh, he was doing a deal with his own shadow that somehow gave him powers. What the? This is bringing Steve Shanahan. The Faust drama exemplifies the difficulties of individualization for persons in the Christian and scientific worlds. Merging the Christian with the scientific, Jung saw much of himself in Faust. That's sick, dude. You should seek psychological help yourself. Worry about yourself. Matt, this is breaking down. I tell you what's breaking down, this horse shit that I'm trying to get through. I was impressed by the first parts of it. Okay, then he's big into astrology, focusing on the astrological Pisces and the real meaning behind it. Paired fishes and that horse shit. Oh, what is symbolism of Christ, the fish. Okay. I'm not going any further. I'm not. Darwin? What the hell? He's got Darwin here. I hope Darwin. And then Karl Marx. I hope they weren't contemporaries and that influenced you. I mean, this guy died, I think, around 1960 or something like that. It's not that long ago. There's more here that I didn't get into. I'll probably continue to read. If there's something really amazing, I'll do a part 2. Most people listening to me is probably like me, not overly familiar with the works of Carl Jung, just a little bit of an introduction via the Philosopher Series. I still think enough of Carl Jung I'm still going to title it the Philosopher Series and keep the word fool out of it. But the same lesson always applies. If somebody is world famous, then the notnilC, it didn't just happen when the notnilC was asleep, like the rabbit racing the turtle. The notnilC likes a lot of what this person's saying, whether they're in on it or not, or they would not be world famous. I'll show you the negative 20 subscribers, my count, if you like. Well, why does it matter? If it was so worried about you, I didn't say it was worried about me. It just doesn't promote. It just doesn't promote me. You know, I'm okay. I mean, Carl Jung, he didn't do that all on his own. There's a lot of stuff the notnilC likes, but that doesn't mean all of it should be rejected. As with everything, we should take away what we can use. There's always truth in things like this, always things we can use. And we have the discernment to throw in the trash anything that Steve Shanahan labels as all dog shit, you know. And most of it, in this case, most of it's weeds, dog shit, in my opinion. A lot of interesting things here. I'm still going to call it the Philosopher Series. Unlike Nietzsche, I still maintained a degree of respect for Carl Jung. Thanks for listening.